How, I mean, shit, dude. I I don't even know how to prepare for this. Um this is a podcast that Tomas and I wanted to do. Uh
So,
it's a podcast that we didn't envision ourselves doing ever.
no, and this is something we're kind of not used to. So, here at the ZNT Wrestling Show, we're mostly known for reviewing classic pay-per-views or current pay-per-views or TV specials. And if you've been following us for the past 3 years, you know we like to have a good time. We like to laugh. We like to reminisce of these pay-per-views that we grew up watching. We like reviewing the current product because at the end of the day, real life gets hard and pro wrestling for us, and I'm sure for everybody else, has always been an escape from reality where we can kind of just forget about everything and just like immerse ourselves in these storylines, these characters. And it's a good segue into, we don't know these people in real life. They don't
Yeah.
know us. But it's this weird effect that when you sit on your couch and you watch Raw and SmackDown and NXT and Dynamite and Impact, these people become a part of your lives and they become a part of you. And it
You
is, you know, with a heavy heart for us to say we are going up here to talk about the passing of Windham Rotunda, aka Bray Wyatt, a wrestler who has impacted our lives these past 10 plus years.
still can't believe you're saying that,
And
man.
yeah, it's it's sad. It's
Yeah.
and this is the biggest death to impact us, me personally, since Eddie Guerrero when I was in fifth grade, just because he was a part of our lives. And just to read that he is no longer with us and to see what the roster had to go through at that time, this is this is very close to that. And just to go over some of the very rudimentary details, Bray
Yeah.
Wyatt was only 36 years old. Um,
Way
his Yeah,
way too early to leave this earth.
yeah.
Um, this is just one of those things, and the Eddie thing feels like a lifetime ago.
Mhm.
Uh, and this just hit me like a ton of bricks. And this is just something that death affects us in different ways. Like this is a unique situation because we also had to experience the passing of Terry Funk this week. Uh, Terry Funk got to live a long, fruitful, and I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I'm going off the cuff here, guys. But Terry Funk got to, see his kids grow up and he got to see his grandkids grow up. Wyndham Rotunda, unfortunately, will never get that privilege. Um, I can only feel for JoJo and I can only feel for the kids. I can, and I feel for his
And
family, his friends, and his fans. Loads of
by
them.
no means are we undermining Terry Funk's passing.
No.
It's a very, very, very different situation, like we said. To quote Greg Morgan on his podcast, Terry Funk lived a long and fruitful life. And this is more of a celebration of his life because he got to live his whole life. He never retired. Uh, to
No.
quote my friend, to quote my friend Sean, when I was talking to him about this yesterday, he said the only person that could retire Terry was God. And Funk, and we're going to be talking about Funk too. This is going to be a retrospective of both of them. I don't have a lot of memories with Funk. I just remember seeing like what everybody else talks about, classic ECW pay-per-views. Funk was one of the pioneers of hardcore wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't just a hardcore guy. You look back in his history, him and his brother Dory were a legendary tag team on the territories. He
God.
had some stints with WWE. He worked for WCW. He worked for TNA. He worked everywhere. And there
Yeah.
wasn't a place that Terry wouldn't work for. And again, I don't know. I don't have a lot of memories of his career, but one, I wanted to mainly highlight is the biggest and the only memory I have of him. ECW One Night Stand 2006. He teamed with Mick Foley. No, he didn't team with Foley. He teamed with Tommy Dreamer to face off against Mick Foley and Edge. And
Hmm.
in that match, Edge and Foley took Funk out. And one of the most incredible images from that match I remember is Terry coming through the crowd with a barbed wire 2x4. Was it on fire? I can't remember if it was on fire.
I don't remember if it was on fire or not. I do know that him and the Mixter went through a flaming table at ringside, and Mick had a little bit of like, he had like a small little flame on his lower back, and he was like stop, dropping, and rolling just to put that little spark out.
Yeah,
The
and it's a
Terry Funk.
legendary image of Funk going
Oh,
through the crowd with a barbed wire 2x4 with a giant bandage on his eye. And it's such an incredible image. And it's like me as a 12-year-old kid, not
hmm.
knowing who Terry was, the only thing I could think was, what a badass this guy is. And again, I
He's
don't feel like, yeah,
man, he's an outlaw. He was an outlaw. Um, Bray Wyatt, to you know a more modern extent, was another outlaw. Uh, a lot of people on Twitter were a lot of wrestling personalities on Twitter sending condolences out to both the Funk family and the Rotunda family both. They were calling them cowboys on and off, and I think that's the perfect way to describe both of them, both these individuals.
so I don't feel like I'm in a position to talk about Terry's career because, like I said, he was way past
Yeah.
my prime, and I do
Hmm.
have leave that to the Greg Morgans, leave that to the Brian Zanes, leave that to the other historians on this channel. We just
Well,
wanted to pay our respects to
absolutely.
Funk.
And one match I would like to talk about with Terry Funk was the famous "I Quit" match that he shared with Ric Flair. That was on the Ric Flair Ultimate Collection DVD that I had growing up, and watching that match multiple times, that alongside the 1992 Royal Rumble, which was my first exposure to that Flair match. Um, I feel like I can comfortably say that Ric Flair versus Terry Funk just might be the greatest "I Quit" match of all time,
It
and
is.
that is one of my favorite stipulations that's out there. Terry Funk and Ric Flair both revolutionized that. Uh, Funk made Flair look like the biggest babyface on the planet, which if you know how Ric Flair is in real life, that's a pretty darn difficult thing to do. But Terry
Yeah.
Funk did it. Terry Funk did it, and
The only other memory I have of Terry is watching the WrestleMania 14 DVD as much as I did and seeing him as Chainsaw Charlie and Cactus Jack win the tag team
oh
titles from the New Age Outlaws in a dumpster match. That was like one of Funk's like only stints in WWE. It is a fun little match to go
wow.
back on and just to see that Terry was down for anything. If it involved hardcore, he was down for it. And that nasty bump that him and Foley took on that episode of Raw where
Good
the
God,
Outlaws
yeah.
put him in the dumpster and just shoved him off the stage. Like,
Daddy
you know
ass
what?
threw them both in a dumpster and just shoved them off the stage, and like,
Just when you thought Foley was the craziest man on earth, I think Terry was the second craziest man on earth for taking the bumps he did.
no, 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 no. I think Foley and Funk were both equal. Foley
Yeah.
has often called Terry Funk his hero and his idol.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, no better influence for Mick Foley to become the modern king of hardcore for a lot of people. So,
So
yeah,
many people on this planet have attended Funk University, and it's just their mentor. May he rest in peace. But Wyatt, this is a totally different story. I was
it's a
just
tragedy.
sitting at home, just enjoying my day. A good friend of mine tagged me in he screenshotted a tweet and tagged me in it in our group chat and just said, holy shit. And we share a lot of wrestling things with each other on this group chat. So I didn't know what to think. But I click on the tweet and it's Triple H announcing that Mike Rotunda has informed him that Bray Wyatt has passed away.
Yeah,
And I just audibly gasped.
it's one of those. It's one of those points where I'll never forget where I was. And part of me, like, it's crazy that this crazy looking guy right here next to me is the one that broke the news.
Yeah.
because I remember during the pandemic when may he rest in peace when Brody Lee passed away. It was the day after Christmas. I was sitting in my bedroom just, watching TV. I was just scrolling through Twitter. I refuse to call it X, but it's Twitter. And I was scrolling through it and I just see, AEW's press release. And I'm like, this has to be a joke. Like, I got to tell somebody about this. Tomas was
That's
the
the
first person I told. And
first thing we all think when something like this happens, that you're kidding. This is a lie. There's no way. Like, the
mhm,
first thing I thought when I read that tweet was, that's not true. He's coming back to the ring. And that
mhm,
was the thing. So his last televised match was the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match at the Royal Rumble. He would continue to show up on TV, um, to, you know, forward this angle with him and Uncle Howdy. To It seemed like there was no direction for him until it was being rumored, or well, Wyatt came out on TV on SmackDown and said, I'm going to challenge the winner of the Brock Lesnar Bobby Lashley match at Elimination Chamber. So they were kind of teasing, they were setting up a Bray and Lashley feud for Mania. But then
yeah.
all of a sudden, we're hearing that Wyatt's getting pulled off TV due to an un-injury related illness. And that's the phrase that won't leave my head. And I kind of didn't think anything of it, but it's like, oh, Wyatt's off TV. Okay, maybe they can do something with Lashley to make a little more sense. Nothing
So,
against the feud, but it was like, it just didn't feel like it made sense. And then Mania just came and went, and we're just like, where's Bray? Where'd he go? Like,
yeah,
there
he
was
just, and
rumors up the wazoo. Is it a mental health issue? Is he physically sick? Is he injured? Is he having creative differences with Triple H? It was just like, we don't know what's
yeah.
going on. All I thought was, whatever Wyatt's going through, I hope he's okay. And
So,
then there were rumors going into SummerSlam that he might interfere in one of the main events. And then
mhm,
that didn't happen. And now we're hearing like, oh, Wyatt is getting better. He's going to return soon. And then,
this.
yeah,
So it was disclosed shortly after this horrible bombshell was dropped on all of us from Sean Ross Sapp. And he said that he was given permission to basically state to the entire world that the non-injury related illness that pulled Bray Wyatt out of WrestleMania was COVID-19. Um, and it's still a big deal, guys. I mean, say what you want about it, but it's still a big deal, clearly. And this exacerbated a heart issue that Bray Wyatt had been dealing with. It was a career and life threatening situation. And there were rumors dating back a couple weeks ago that Bray was getting better and he was close to getting cleared. And then as of yesterday, we're recording this on Friday night, the 25th. Uh, Bray has a heart attack and dies. Um, and it's just
speaking of
something.
Eddie, too similar to Eddie.
Yeah.
Way too similar to Eddie. And when
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea Bray was only 36 years old. And the first thing I thought was that that's too close to Eddie. It's like, this is too much. This is way too much. And I just remember sitting there and just like kind of soaking it in, just like not knowing how to process this, because we've enjoyed him for the past decade. And Wyatt just felt like one of those guys, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, he was going to be there for a very, very, very long time. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, and I was discussing this with my brother just earlier, like, and we were reminiscing about Wyatt, and he goes, like, I remember him in the Nexus. And I go, that's right, Husky Harris. Like,
Yeah,
say
that
what you
didn't.
want about the gimmick, but, you know, regardless of the situation he was put in, I remember him on NXT season 2, and I couldn't help but agree. He really was the tank with the Ferrari engine.
Was he the? No, he wasn't the one who cut the mustache promo. I don't
No, that was
even.
Eli Cottonwood, who I
What is a
mistook for
mustache?
Brody Lee at one point.
Yeah, yeah. No, Eli
But
Cottonwood was another Wyatt family disciple, I believe, at one point or another. But
yeah,
Bray
but
Wyatt's NXT Pro was none other than Cody Rhodes.
yeah,
And there were rumors that Bray was going to come back and feud with Cody, and Bray was going to be a heel. Um, but obviously that's not going to happen. And
You know, we have no structure for this podcast other than getting out what happened, when it happened, where we
mhm.
were, and
And
one thing we want to point out, like our hearts are with his wife, his two kids, I believe, his father,
he's
his
got four
brother,
kids. He's got four
four
kids.
kids. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah. His
Yeah.
kids, his father, his brother, Bo Dallas, and every single member of the WWE and AEW roster because we're heading into a very important weekend in wrestling and 2 weekends of wrestling pretty much. So we had SmackDown tonight. On Sunday is AEW's biggest show ever and All In at Wembley Stadium. The
Mhm.
following weekend is Payback for WWE, and then Sunday is All Out for AEW. So it's a huge weekend for wrestling,
Yeah.
and I understand all the men and women are going to want to focus on that, and the show must go on. But Wyatt's presence is going to be felt huge in every single wrestling company for the
Mhm.
foreseeable future.
Because I I'm going to do this when I go to Raw in a couple months, and I'm going to do this for every wrestling show going forward. Those lights go down at the beginning of the show. They play
The
the little
Fireflies are going to
announcement
come up.
that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that everybody else does this, and I hope I don't blind anybody, but Fireflies. I just
Yeah.
the spirit of Bray Wyatt. The lantern may be out forever, but the Fireflies can keep that
Yeah.
flame going,
The
and it can
Fireflies
immortalize it.
will, yeah, they are. And, some of the people in the business that we feel especially for is, of course, his brother Dallas, Alexa
Hmm.
Bliss, who worked very close with him in the Firefly Funhouse,
Yeah.
Eric Rowan.
Yeah. Someone. If anybody sees the vintner walking around in the streets, please give him a hug. Make
Yeah.
sure he's okay.
Yeah.
Same thing with Braun Strowman. Alexa Bliss is about to have her welcome her first child into the world, and she's got to deal with this. I feel so bad for her, man. And like
Um,
that picture of her that she posted on her Instagram to tribute Windham, it's her in her
with
Firefly
crispy feet.
Funhouse gimmick, and she's hugging Wyndham, and he's standing there with what I'm guessing is the biggest smile on his face, all while he's wearing the burnt fiend as he
Crispy feet.
this is the fiend that had been burnt to a crisp at that point, right? And he was standing there like a melted candle, and like in broad daylight that stuff is like so much more horrifying. Like,
Yeah.
he just had so
Wyatt.
much like love for the business, and so like he was so loved by everybody. So
One thing that I could not, one thing that did bring a little smile to my face these past 24 hours is just so many fans posting that, posting their interactions with Bray. One
yeah.
in particular of a man and his son that Wyatt met behind the building after a show, and they were saying, "Oh my God, you remembered my son," and just Wyatt just looks like the most approachable human being on the planet. I've heard some stories from some independent wrestlers that have worked as extras for WWE shows, and they just say they see Bray in catering. He's just kicking back. He was with his family. And one thing that Wyatt that I understand is his mind was so creative. One story from a wrestler here in the area, he said that he was in catering and a writer approached Bray with a paper with some like ideas like the layout for the night. Wyatt took the paper, crumpled it up, threw it over his shoulder, and laughed. Just like, I don't need your writing. He has his own.
Bray Wyatt's imagination was unmatched. I know a lot of his storylines have gotten very polarizing reactions over the years. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I didn't, enjoy the creative direction Bray was going into for WrestleMania against Bobby Lashley. I'm like,
Mhm.
Bray Wyatt against Uncle Howdy, it was like, what the heck are they doing with just like, Bray, like, I don't know. Like it's something like you could always speculate, like you can only speculate about what was going on in that dude's brain, but
Yeah, but
there's
it's like,
there's no denying that Bray was willing to flip the script on what it meant to tell a story in this business.
So much to the point that when he got released in 2020, there were a lot of people saying Wyatt doesn't even need to come back to wrestling. He could be a horror movie writer. He could be,
Hmm.
a movie writer. He could be so much more whenever he wanted to put his mind to, but wrestling was in his blood.
Yeah. He was a third generation performer, the son of WWE Hall of Famer Erwin R. Shyster. My God, does my heart go out to him? Like no parent should ever have to see their child go in the grave. It's horrible. But yeah, son of IRS, grandson of Blackjack Mulligan, which I had not, I mean, I probably had heard that little factoid, but it just completely whizzed past my mind and this whole whirlwind of emotions I've been feeling as a big Bray Wyatt fan. Um,
I we have no structure for this podcast,
no.
by the way. We're not going to chronicle his career, like
Mm-mm.
his entire career, but we just want to kick back and just talk about some of our favorite moments. I will say, after the Nexus stint with him and Husky Harris, Bray did get sent back to developmental where he did develop the Wyatt character. Spent a good amount of 2012 there where he recruited some of the NXT guys to be part of his faction. Most notably Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, who would be brought up to the main roster with him in 2013. I remember seeing the promo packages for the Wyatt family, and the first thing I thought was, "This is terrifying." The
Yeah.
imagery, the creepy imagery that they would use, the random flashes of bugs, and just uh, Rowan wearing the sheet mask and him peeking out from the side of the tree. Like, that's some next level horror movie stuff. And I was like, I'm excited to see this new group, but I'm like, oh my God, what are they gonna do? Just to
Mm-hmm.
find out they were like a group of like a hillbilly cult.
A
You
hillbilly
got
cult.
Rowan. It's like Duck
Bray.
Dynasty on crack.
Yeah. Doug Dynasty. Yeah, I remember when that show was a thing. I know people were doing like side by side comparisons. This is the White family debuted when I was a junior in high school. They came out
Wait, I
with
was
like,
19 at that
Doug,
point.
I know Doug Dynasty was yeah, no, Tomas is older than me, but in any regard, um they would have side by side comparisons to be like, oh, the Duck Dynasty has nothing on the Wyatts, and I'm like, I would agree. I would agree with that. I mean,
Yeah.
Duck
Oh
Dynasty,
yeah.
like I remember when that was a huge fad in the early 2010s, and the Wyatts were, I was so compelled by what the plans were going to be for them, and I could only imagine that Bray Wyatt was kind of going to be like, if Roman Reigns was John Cena, Bray Wyatt could have been his Randy Orton, and they could
Could
have
have.
led WWE into, a whole new era. It all started with that
Wyatt's
freaking sane Shield Wide Family 6-man tag at the Elimination Chamber in 2014. Didn't order that
Wyatt's
pay-per-view live, but I went back and watched it on the network, and I was
it was the only match
enthralled.
worth watching on that show.
Yeah.
It was the first time in WWE history where the fans were chanting "This is awesome" before these guys even laid a finger on each other.
Hmm.
You have the
And they were
two,
both heels. They were both heel
yeah,
factions.
and it was actually a very smart move by Vince just to be like, you know what, these are two huge factions that we're pushing, and the fans are drawing to them. I know Shield was like teetering on turning babyface, but it wasn't like full blown babyface. So it's like, you know what, let's have faction warfare and just let them go at it. And it's like, yeah, not to an amazing match, but Wyatt's promo skills were on another level. I never
Hmm.
knew what he was talking about, and honestly, a lot of these promos never really went anywhere. There was no direction for them, but I didn't care. I just wanted to sit there and listen to this man speak. Like, just the way he would just purvey words, and it's like I didn't care that I didn't understand them. Like, I just loved it, and like I remember throughout the years, like in theater with my friends, like we would
Hmm.
just randomly quote Bray Wyatt on the radio. Like we would just randomly be like, "They've
Yeah.
been lying to you, man. They're lying to you." And like I would even start coming up with my own Bray Wyatt promos when I was hanging out with my friends, and I would say something
Like,
like, "The streets have ears, man. The streets have ears." And my friends like, "That is totally something Wyatt would say."
freaking like, I've been watching, like, there's been a bunch of like fantasy booking videos of Bray Wyatt trying to, like, really get into this man's head and see like, oh man, maybe if this character went in this direction, if Vince McMahon only, oh man, I don't want to talk about him right now, but if only like Bray Wyatt's untapped potential like propelled him to the top of WWE where he belonged, like if only Triple H was in charge of creative sooner. Because I feel like for a bunch of his career, we had been rooting for Bray Wyatt to really break through that proverbial glass ceiling and be the guy. But his imagination was always shackled.
Yeah, and it's just like he was always booked in these situations where he was working with top guys, but
Mm-hmm.
but now it makes sense to me that maybe Wyatt was supposed to, even though Bray didn't pin a lot of these guys, he elevated them to the next level. Roman Reigns, Finn Balor, Seth Rollins,
John
hell,
Cena.
even guys that didn't need to be elevated, and John Cena and Randy Orton.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Hardy, he was a huge part of Matt Hardy's return to WWE
Oh man.
in 2018, and we'll get to that. But you think of all these people, and you just like Wyatt was such a pivotal part of their career.
I was gonna like getting back to the promo skills. Like I'm gonna quote somebody from What Culture and How Parts Fun Known. You could just make up words with a Bray Wyatt promo. You can just make them up. And then I would just be like, yeah, he kind of does have a point, though. He kind of does have a point because, like, you could just say something like, "What do you do when an alligator just walks through the trees, man?"
Yeah, exactly.
What do? You just grab his jaws, you rip it open, and then you take his throat out. Run. You know, you would just.
I love those.
You know, sitting in that rocking chair and just deliver nursery rhymes. Like there was nobody like him.
And then
okay, yeah, no, you're back.
and then in end of 2018, oh no, like in the middle of 2018, Bray Wyatt kind of just disappeared. And then in 2019, we started getting vignettes of a buzzard and a birthday present and
Mercy the Buzzard,
a witch. And we were all thinking, oh, it's just Wyatt coming back. Just to tune into Monday Night Raw, and you see rainbows and bright colors and cartoon characters,
balloon letters,
and a very catchy theme song. And here's Bray Wyatt as a children's television show host, hosting the Firefly Funhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched this segment. And here's the thing, I wasn't really watching Raw on the regularly because I wasn't really happy with the product, but everyone was like, you need to watch this, you need to watch this, you need to watch this. And I watched it, and I was finished with it, and I kind of just went, that was fucking awesome. Yeah. It was a whole new repackaging for Wyatt. And it was basically just, Bray talked about it in the Funhouse. He was saying, oh, that nasty old mean man, the cult leader, he's dead. We're not going to talk about it anymore. Now I'm happy and I'm fun and I'm nice and I have all these puppets. And then all of a sudden, of course, he puts his hands over his face. You see Hurt and Heal, and you see the creepy imagery of a crazy man in a clown mask. And it's just like, oh, there it is. It's a weird, and it was the greatest fucking thing I've ever seen. Bray Wyatt made 2019. That was his year. And if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be a goddamn thing other than Kofi Kingston winning the WWE Championship that I would have liked about that year.
Yeah. The Firefly Funhouse, when it first debuted, I was like, this is freaking bizarre. I'm going to see where this goes. I'm captivated by what Bray's doing because I'll be honest, other than Kofi Mania, like you, I mean, I was hoping that Seth would beat Brock and everything, but Kofi Mania was the only thing worth tuning into the product for around that time. And then Bray Wyatt makes his comeback. And I'll tell you what, this may be an unpopular opinion for a lot of people, but Firefly Funhouse / Fiend Bray Wyatt is my favorite iteration of him.
Mine too.
You can make arguments for literally all three versions that you've seen of him. You can make arguments for all of them.
After WrestleMania, when they introduced that god-awful wild card rule, I stopped watching Raw and SmackDown until and they had advertised Bray Wyatt versus no, up until the Firefly Funhouse debuted. The minute I saw that, I'm like, I'm watching Raw every single week because I need to see what he's gonna do next. And he
Mm-hmm.
started introducing these crazy characters like Rambling Rabbits and Abby the Witch and Mercy the Buzzard. And it's just like, this is so creepy, but I love it. There's just this, it's this weird amalgamation of, oh, look at this super family friendly thing, but it's not. And it kept my eyes glued to these segments every single week. And it's just,
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. That catchy Firefly Funhouse theme song. It was just, and then they were just building up to it little by little. And yes, it annoyed me that Finn Balor was on Raw when he was a SmackDown guy, but he just won a match. And then the lights went out. You hear that screeching siren. Lights come back up, and it's the Fiend, and he gives Balor the Sister Abigail. And the
Mm-hmm.
match was set. Bray Wyatt versus Finn Balor, SummerSlam, and Balor was really brushing Wyatt off, just like, I've beaten this guy like 3 times. There's not a damn thing he can do to, like, and this is how I looked at it. Balor let his guard down because he didn't bring the Demon King to this pay-per-view because he was like,
No.
it's Bray Wyatt. I don't need to bust him out. The lights go out. You hear that screeching siren. And I loved how they opened up with the Firefly Funhouse theme song. And then it got all distorted. And the whole arena starts filling with fog. And then you hear that reimagined version of Live in Fear, now sung by Code Orange. And
A
Bray
chick
Wyatt
singing
comes
it.
out with this crazy clown mask. And he has the lantern. But as the lantern is a mold of his old face with a
Yeah.
candle in it. And I'm just like, that's fucking twisted.
It's so like that is Bray Wyatt's imagination running wild. And that was what I
And
freaking loved about it. And the Fiend's entrance at SummerSlam 2019 is something I will never forget seeing. Uh, and every single piece of Fiend merch that I could get my hands on, I have a Funko Pop of the Fiend that will never leave that spot. I don't think I'll ever take it out of the box. I'm sorry, Lindsay, but I can't do it. I can't bring myself to doing it because it's just a great item. But yeah, he squashes Finn Balor, and the Fiend virus started going through the roster. He started changing everybody for the
yeah,
better. Finn,
Jerry the King Lawler, Kane, Mick Foley, Kurt Angle, he started targeting all these legends. And
and
then
then
one other
Seth
thing I want to bring
Rollins.
up, yeah, a couple of things I wanted to bring about that Fiend Balor match is that number one, when Fiend and finishes his entrance, you look at the look on Balor's face and he's just like, I fucked up. I
Mm-hmm.
fucked up not bringing the Demon King because and Bray Wyatt was introducing elements into matches that you've never seen in pro wrestling before. Like he would do a move where he would just snap the neck,
Yeah.
and it's like I remember seeing that move for the first time. I'm like, Bray is really just like not pushing the boundaries, but just like thinking outside the box and just like doing all these things. Like I went through this weird phase where I think when Broken Matt Hardy burst on the scene, I was like, I want to see pro wrestling go out of the realm of reality. And
Mm-hmm.
Bray Wyatt doing that just really started getting the wheels turning. It's like you watch wrestling for as long as we do, and how many times can you just turn on the show and you see, oh, two guys fighting, they're going to do a bunch of moves to each other, and one hits a move, and oh yeah, he wins. How many times can you see the steel chairs and the kendo sticks and the lead pipes? And it's like, when is someone going to go outside of the box? Then you have guys like Broken Matt Hardy. Then you have guys like Orange Cassidy. And then you have guys like Bray Wyatt.
Yeah. I feel like we can all aspire to have the showmanship and imagination and like just the creative outlet that Bray Wyatt like had with the pro wrestling industry, and the fact that he was willing to think outside the box and be different. I feel like that's going to be his ultimate legacy. He's going to be one of the most creative minds to ever step foot into the industry. And that Fiend gimmick, and listen, say what you want about that Hell in a Cell match, because we have said plenty. We have had friends who have legitimately stopped watching WWE because of how that match ended. I'm not going to name names, but that's just the God's honest truth. But I will. This is on a personal note. I this was in Sacramento. Sacramento is about 3 hours away from me, and I had never really made that far of a drive anywhere to see a wrestling show at that point. But Tomas was very, very close at the time, and he was like, "Dude, when are you gonna have a chance to see Hell in a Cell?" And I was like, "How many chances am I gonna get to see the Fiend?" You know, Hell in a Cell is cool and all, but I drove up to that pay-per-view to see the Fiend. Um,
Being in the building that night, and I remember being outside the venue, like before the doors opened, and there was a family that wanted me to take a picture of them. And I took the photo and I said, everybody say yowie wowie. And the dad laughed and me and him chatted after that. And I go like, yeah, like, how do you feel about this Bray Wyatt stuff? It's crazy, isn't it? He's like, yeah, man, it's awesome. Like, that's why we're here. We want to win the championship. And I was like, well, I mean, and he had kids. I was like, well, how do your kids feel about it? Are they like, really creeped out about it? It's like, oh no, they think he's cool. And like, yeah, it's just like, it was a little weird at first, but it was just everybody in that building that night was there to see the Fiend. And I remember sitting, waiting for that match to start, and everyone pulled out the fireflies and everything got red. And the Fiend came out and everyone was behind him. And I'm just like, this is the most over gimmick in WWE right now.
the Fiend's
And it's not supposed
entrance
to be. It's not supposed to be.
live, the Fiend's entrance is probably unbeatable. I don't know of any other entrance that's going to top it at this point. Even any WrestleMania entrance that I attend from here on out. That was something special to be there that night. And I had it on video for a bit. And I was videoing the Fiend making his way down to the squared circle. And I see, the lights, like there's a point where the lights like do this thing where they have like the red lights are there, obviously because the Fiend. And then there's just a bunch of spotlights on the stage. They go down like all at the same time. And I was sitting there like, you hear me in the background of this video and I go, whoa, no way. And I'm losing my mind.
There was a reason why that whole audience wanted to burn Golden One Center to the ground when the Fiend didn't win the championship. And that's because we loved Bray Wyatt and his sadistic mind. Like,
I have never, and I will never again see a crowd more mad at a finish than they were there. My whole section, when the Fiend started making his, he was rejuvenated and all this bullshit, and he was putting Seth in the mandible claw after the stretcher job was done. There were chants of drop the cage. And there were chants of restart the match. And then when they realized that WWE was not going to do a dusty finish and not restart the match, they started chants of AEW, because AEW was brand new at that point.
I tried to start a TNA chant.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Tomas tried to start a TNA chant. It was it was what I like to call a diarrhea finish. Vince McMahon special. Why
was it's like it didn't matter, like, oh, they want Rollins. Like, Rollins won the championship twice this year. You have the hottest gimmick on the planet right now. And you're not going to put the championship on him. Yeah, they rectified that like 6 weeks later in Saudi Arabia. I'm like, no. You did that because you fucked up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
a false count anywhere match where, by the way, the match could not be stopped for any reason. So every false count anywhere match. That
stipulation.
So every false count anywhere
stipulation.
Yeah.
And the fact that was the second time in the span of a year that WWE had did a no contest finish to a Hell in a Cell. I think it was at that moment everyone was like, Vince, you need to get the fuck out of here, because you clearly don't know what you're doing anymore.
You don't say. So Bray Wyatt holds on to this Universal title for a while. He debuts my favorite iteration of the Universal title, which I still have sitting up here, the Blue Universal title in the Firefly Funhouse. This is my new favorite toy. He pulls it, it's like it's
he did
so
some magic.
demented.
I think he put on a magician's hat and a cape, and he had a wand, and he just like tapped the
so
belt
good.
And it went from red to blue. It's like, That's because the Fiend got drafted to SmackDown. That's literally the only reason why that happened.
And even then, like, for something as dumb and as a little bit overthinking as a title swap, Bray Wyatt managed to be creative with it. Uh,
If there's one thing we can call Bray Wyatt too, he was the fibrillator that was Bryan Danielson's career.
oh man, how
He
do
was the
where do we even
defibrillator.
begin? How do we even begin with that one? The trilogy of matches that him and Bryan Danielson shared, Royal Rumble 2014, first and foremost, that was all built up by what I consider one of the best moments in Raw history, when Daniel Bryan shed the Wyatt family clothes and the crowd in unison does the yes chant with him inside the steel cage after they lose to the Usos. I think they lost to the Usos that night.
Yeah, if Danielson, if the crowd didn't make that moment what it was, it would have been your run of the mill angle. I would have said even stupid, like why bring Danielson into the Wyatts if he's just going to turn on them like less than a month later. But that moment, it's like Vince McMahon was trying to bury Danielson after the WWE Championship angle over the fall. They were like, you know what? Nope, I don't care. Danielson, you and CM Punk go play with the Wyatts. I'm going to put Big Show in the main event. I'm going to unify the titles between Cena and Orton. I'm going to stick with my guys, and go play with the Wyatts, and everyone's going to forget about you.
Goodness
The
me.
Wyatt family and Bray Wyatt in particular, again, was the defibrillator for igniting the yes movement into the Royal Rumble, into Danielson's WrestleMania moment. You fast forward to 2019 when The Fiend is the Universal Champion. Danielson just finished up his heel run with a great match with Rowan and Harper, coincidentally enough, teaming
Yep.
with Roman Reigns at Hell in a Cell.
Fucking
And
awesome match.
he went into that feud with The Fiend at Survivor Series and the Rumble. And again, it's like that yes movement was missing for a while. And Bray Wyatt just brought it back to life. And then you talk about that amazing moment at TLC where Danielson came in to attack The Fiend. And like you said, The Fiend had this gimmick where everybody he touched, he changed in a way. Well, after Danielson lost to The Fiend at Survivor Series, Danielson took a break and he came back at TLC. Gone was the long hair, gone was the beard. It's like Danielson hit the reset button on himself.
He looks like the American Dragon again.
This pop. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they had such an underrated strap match at the Royal Rumble in 2020.
Love that match. Some people have been calling it the greatest strap match of all time. I mean, I don't know. There's been a lot of great strap matches, man, but that one, you really felt the physicality of the stipulation. And I feel like that whole feud with Daniel Bryan, it really showed you that Bray Wyatt could freaking wrestle. Like, for a big guy, for a guy that's probably going to be known as one of the most creative minds the business has ever seen, that dude could work. He put on some great matches. All three with Daniel Bryan, really good. John Cena, say what you want about the John Cena feud in 2014. He had a good match with him at Mania 30. Probably should have won it. Had a weird steel cage match with him at Extreme Rules that year as a follow-up.
I think they had a great match at Payback in a last man standing match.
Yeah, of all stipulations, yeah. Not right now. Not right now. But,
and then The Fiend would drop the title infamously to Goldberg in Saudi Arabia. The Fiend was getting ready to feud with John Cena going into WrestleMania 2020, but we all know what happened there. But probably a blessing in disguise because Wyatt's imagination got to go wild in what is infamously known as the Firefly Funhouse match, where it wasn't even really a match. It was a deconstruction of John Cena's career.
Yes, it was. It was a match. It was.
I know, but when you look at it, there was no it was less of a match. Again, Bray Wyatt defeated John Cena by using his own insecurities against him. It was a deconstruction of his career, talking about, hey, Cena, remember when you almost got fired because you were just plain as vanilla and you had no character with you whatsoever? Remember when rapping saved your career? Remember when you could have turned the business on its head and you could have turned heel like Hulk Hogan did in 1995, but you just didn't do it? Like, remember all your failures?
It's a perfect character examination and a perfect character assassination all at the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a great blend of what made the Fiend so great with the horror elements, because the Fiend does show up at the end of that match and puts Cena in the mandible claw and pins him with the mandible claw, even though that's a submission hold. But we're just gonna forget that for a minute.
And also,
So
Wyatt, at near the end of it, Cena has a, and Bray Wyatt basically tells him, "You hit me with that steel chair, you're going to become a bully like everybody says you are." It's like
mhm.
Cena could not win this match.
There was no way that he could win this match. As the Vince McMahon puppet said, "This is such good shit."
Yeah, such
It
a
was great shit.
Bray Wyatt just had this way of purveying his
It
messages in
was
ways like,
the perfect blend of those horror elements and also the dark comedy elements that I loved about the Firefly Funhouse. My favorite moment in that match that I don't think anybody talks about is the point where Cena is in his rookie gear and he tries to do the slap multiple times, ruthless aggression, and that saying, and he tries to do the slap and Bray keeps ducking out of the way. One of them, he pops back up and he does the Nikki Bella shit. And I'm like,
mhm, which represented so many things. First of all, literally, oh, I'm ducking your punches.
you can
Second,
look, but you can't touch.
mentally, because Cena had broken up with Nikki and he was rubbing it in her face. And also, in such a meta sense, because we were in the middle of COVID and that literally was the motto of 2020: you can look, but you can't touch.
Mm-hmm.
It
Bro, you
was
don't say.
such an underrated moment. Such an underrated moment.
It's
But
one of my favorite matches. Like,
Bray
honestly,
Wyatt
it's great
really
theater.
held the fort down in the PC era before they turned into the Thunderdome. And even in
Yeah.
the Thunderdome era, that's when he really just got to let his creative mind go. Like we talk about those soldiers that stuck around in the PC, your Bray Wyatts, your Apollo Cruzes, your MVPs, your Lashley's, like the guys that don't get enough credit for sticking around when they didn't need to. They could have
Mm-hmm.
just, went home and said, "Hey, I'll come back when this is over."
Yeah. That was around the time that the ZNT wrestling show actually started. The first Bray Wyatt match we actually reviewed on this as an interesting statistic was the Wyatt Swamp fight at the horror show at Extreme Rules. Um, which I
Yeah,
actually called an interesting match. Looking back at that pod,
I
I was like, that was interesting.
love Bray to death, but looking at this match, it was not good. It was not good.
Yeah, hey, he brought back the Eater of Worlds gimmick that everybody loves so much, but it resulted
Yeah,
in the
but
reincarnation of the Fiend in this like, weird like swamp lake thing, but um he regained the Universal title, only held it for a week, and Roman Reigns has held that Universal title ever since, which is still nuts to think about. Um
the last
but
Universal Champion before Reigns was Bray Wyatt.
mhm.
Bray
And he's
Wyatt
no
would get
longer with us.
released. He would get released shortly after losing the Universal Championship, and I've never seen so much outrage before over a
Losing a
release.
feud to Randy Orton, by the way. Let's not forget that.
Oh wait, no. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a second because that is really, really interesting. Thank you. I
Yes.
jumped too ahead. Bray
No,
Wyatt
it's
would
okay.
reignite,
That's what I'm here
literally.
for.
See what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
Would reignite his feud with Randy Orton near the end of the year, and they would have a Firefly Inferno match at TLC
Mm-hmm.
where Randy Orton burnt the Fiend to a crisp.
Yes, he did.
And that would lead to Randy Orton versus Alexa Bliss at Fastlane because Bliss needed to carry the feud while Wyatt was dead. That led into Crispy Fiend making his return at Fastlane. And when that iconic image with Bliss, straddling Orton to get the pin, and that image has been memed to death, just like that should have been me. Some guys have all the luck. Like,
Goodness gracious. And the Fiend is just standing there all
yeah,
stoic, like burnt.
the
Like
Fiend would make his return at WrestleMania and a match I was looking very forward to. He went through a portal and Crispy Fiend was no more. The regular Fiend is back. He had the best entrance that weekend coming out of, I'm going to make this joke for you, the box-like structure, the giant Jack in the Box that Alexa came out to wind up and bring the Fiend out. I've gone back and watched that entrance so many times. I loved it. He got a huge pop from the limited audience that was there. He dove off the box and did a clothesline to Randy Orton just for the match to go less than 5 minutes, and the Fiend lost.
Well, I mean, the best part of that match was also Bray Wyatt's tribute to Luke Harper doing the yeah as the Fiend, because
Yeah.
this was his first match back after losing his friend during the pandemic. Now to think like just thinking about this, like I can't obviously take comfort in the situation that Bray Wyatt's not with us anymore, but Bray and Luke are going to be enjoying a nice brewski up there. They're going to be enjoying a lot of great wrestling over these next couple weekends.
Yeah.
And I hope these wrestlers
And you
put up
know
a great
what?
show for them.
I'm still not over Harper.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
3 years ago, and I'm not over that.
yeah. Brody was only 41, but
Yeah.
um, goodness gracious. So yeah, the Fiend gets released, and I remember being pissed off mainly because okay, fine, Vince, you don't deserve this creative mind anymore. He can go wherever he wants, and he can let his he can let his creative juices flow wherever he pleases.
I've
Um,
never seen such outrage, not just from the fan base, but from wrestlers alike. Like everyone was hopping on Twitter saying, like, how could you? How could you? How could you let go of this magnificent talent after
heartless
you screwed
bastard.
him 6 ways a Sunday every single time? You know, with the cult leader and then fucking up the Fiend. How do you fuck up the Fiend? It's like it's this guy could have been he could have been your next Kane. He was gonna be your next Kane, but you just it's like if Kane never ripped off the door to Hell in a Cell in 1996.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a much slower build into you know what the Bray Wyatt character would be known for. Um, Bray also, a lot like Chris Jericho, knew how to reinvent himself. Going from the Eater of Worlds seamlessly to the Firefly Funhouse and Fiend phase of his career. And then when rumors started floating around, Vince McMahon retires, Triple H takes over creative, and then my gears started turning a little bit because once I see Karrion Kross make his return, Johnny Gargano, who's another one of my favorites, made his return, and that was so like joyful to watch. Then we start getting QR codes randomly on the and I remember one of the first QR codes we ever got was a show we were at in the building, Tomas. It was Austin Theory getting ready for a match with Kevin Owens. And I see on Twitter, people are like, hey, there's a QR code behind him, and this is where it leads to. And it was like it was a weird, like, hangman sort of, like, I don't think it was the hangman game first. It might have been the maze, but
There was a
regardless,
lot. There was a lot. And this led to probably one of the greatest scavenger hunts
who's the
in
white
pro
rabbit?
wrestling history. It was one of those, I forget what it's called, but it's called something. It's like an online game where you find clues. It's like an online scavenger hunt that turns into like a real scavenger hunt. And people will leave clues in real life, like they will leave QR codes, like in parks and on telephone poles or like something, and they'll lead you to the next clue. It was this crazy, just like, and I remember those next few weeks, every time I watched Raw and SmackDown, I would just be watching, backstage segments. I was like, oh, there it is, stop. And I would just like be inching with the TV remote to get that QR code. Did I get the clues? No, I didn't. Did I know it was Bray Wyatt right away? Yes, I did. But it was just
Oh,
so
yeah.
cool to pay extra attention to Raw and SmackDown at the time. Like I remember there was one QR code that was getting blocked because Hit Row and Riddick Moss got into a backstage fight, and like they kept moving around, so I couldn't get the QR code. I had to rewatch that segment. I'm not kidding, like 15 times just to get a good still shot of that QR code.
Well, there were still QR codes that were fairly easy to get, like that first one with Austin Theory. Literally, Triple H opened up an episode of SmackDown one time, and he had the microphone. You know how the microphones at WWE have those covers on them. He turns the microphone around. It was the WWE logo at one point. He turns it around. There's a QR code right there, as if you didn't know. Hey, this is a gimmick. We know this is a game. This is part of the show. Please tap on this. Here you go.
You know what
There
my
it is.
favorite was? I think Adam Pearce had a clipboard too, and he had it down, and then he put it up, and there was a QR
Oh,
code.
that's right. Yeah, Postman Adam Pearce. Yep.
But you know what freaked me out the most? When there was an episode of SmackDown, Pat McAfee and Michael Cole are at ringside, and then there's a guy in a buzzard costume behind them. He walks by with the sign that says "Revel in what you are." I'm like, oh, that is fucking terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bray Wyatt back at it again, and like there were so many clues to like the Firefly Funhouse and like what this could be leading to. Rumors of the Wyatt Six. Oh my god, the faction that never was now, the Wyatt Six.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been the Windham Six if he wasn't in WWE, but Wyatt Six, bringing us to
So
Extreme
this,
Rules, huh?
yeah, this leads to Extreme Rules. I think there was one clue saying that it was going to reveal itself at Extreme Rules. We were wondering, looking at that card, where could Bray Wyatt show up? Is he going to show up in the Seth Rollins Matt Riddle match? Is he going to show up in the Drew McIntyre Karrion Cross match? Is he going to show up? Where is this going to happen? And then we got through the whole show. And then when Riddle won that match, it dawned on me. I'm like, Wyatt's not returning to feud with anyone. He's just returning to return. And in one of the greatest moments now in pay-per-view history, the lights go out. You hear that eerie, he's got the whole world in his hands. Boom, life-size Rambling Rabbit. Boom, life-size Abby the Witch. Boom, life-size Mercy the Buzzard. Boom, life-size Huskus the Pig Boy. Boom, life-size Fiend. The Fiend is back. The door
Mm-hmm.
shows up. Bray Wyatt kicks down the door. He has the lantern. Place explodes. He looks at the
Mm-hmm.
camera and says, I'm back, and blows out the lantern. One of the greatest pay-per-view finishes in history.
One of the greatest returns in history, I think, just because Bray was so legitimately happy to be back, so happy to be home. I remember the whole joke about that podcast going in. And like, if you don't believe us, go back into our archives and listen to that. It's a fun one. But I remember the recurring joke being, "Yeah, nothing important happened on this pay per view. You know, it's gonna be pretty run of the mill. We're not gonna,
Yeah,
yeah, nothing related to Bray Wyatt happens on this show. You know,
that
like
was not
stuff
even
like
a
that.
year ago.
God, yeah, less than a year ago, man. I
So,
remember I was at a wedding that day too, so I couldn't watch
yeah,
Extreme Rules live. And our buddy Jacob, who was the best man at that wedding, he had it spoiled for him. And he scrolled through on Twitter. He had the Bray Wyatt return spoiled, and and he's like, "Dude, you're not gonna believe it." And I'm like, "Shut up! Do not tell me a damn thing about Extreme Rules.
no,
I want to experience
yeah.
it." I stayed up until like 3 a.m., which is not one of my proudest moments, admittedly, but seeing that Bray Wyatt return with no spoilers, it was freaking worth it. Freaking worth it to stay up that late for that man.
Bray Wyatt would go on to cut one of the most emotional and one of the most real promos I've ever heard, where he
Yeah.
came out the next Friday on SmackDown and he said, I'm going to stop you for a second. This is not the Bray Wyatt character. This is me. This is the realest version of me you're ever going to get. And he talked about he knows this has been one of the most difficult years of his life, losing Brody Lee, getting released. And he said the fans never gave up on him. And because of that, he was able to muster himself up and come back to pro wrestling. So he thanked all the fans. That led into this very strange feud he had with the character named Uncle Howdy. It was like the bad version of himself, like Bray Wyatt was trying to be. It was a Jekyll and Hyde. Like Bray Wyatt's trying to be good. He wants to be a good person. Like for the first time, genuinely in his career, is like no more nonsense, no fiend, no cult leader. I am trying to be a good person now. But Uncle Howdy would show up and say, "No, you're not. You're still whoever. You're still the person you were. You're still a terrible person, and I'm going to bring that bad side out of you." Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
this didn't really lead to anything. It led to a feud with LA Knight, where LA Knight brought the bad out of Bray Wyatt, not Uncle
Yeah.
Howdy. But Uncle Howdy was that devil on his shoulder saying, do it, annihilate this man. That led to the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match.
That
I would
was
have had no issue with this if they would have just taken the Mountain Dew part out. Do a Pitch Black match, do everything the same, whatever. It's the fucking Mountain Dew part that I can't get over.
well, I mean, again, you got to think about how much money WCW was making off those Slim Jim sponsors. The fact that they were putting it on their freaking canvas during Halloween Havoc. Like, in hindsight, monetarily speaking, makes sense that they would plaster the Mountain Dew logo over everything. But even then, still a freaking inventive match from Bray Wyatt's point of view. And I mean, you can go back and listen to that review of that match too, because it's on this channel. I'm not gonna pretend like it's the greatest match of all time, but damn me if I didn't think it was super imaginative. Because it's a bunch of,
Yeah,
it's not
because
really a pitch black match. Because if it was a pitch black match, Tomas, remember, like, this is all you would see. This is all you would see in here.
yeah,
Ow!
but here's the
Oh!
thing.
Yeah, stay with
Regardless
me.
of how the match ended up going, I was just happy to see Bray Wyatt in wrestling gear, carrying the lantern, seeing this new. God damn it, he should still be here.
Yeah.
Ah,
Mhm.
damn it! Just thinking about that just got
This
me.
sucks, dude.
This fucking
Um,
sucks. And I laughed at the end when Uncle Howdy jumped off the set for no reason and went through the table. Hi, I'm Uncle Howdy. Welcome to Jackass. But the fact that
and
that was
see,
the
I was
last
freaking
match.
right too. I was freaking right because I took one look at Uncle Howdy and how he was walking around, and I took one look into his eyes. A lot of people were like theorizing that it could have been Vincent from Ring of Honor, but I'm like, no freaking way. And it was confirmed that it was Bo Dallas. So my theorizing was correct, and it was Bo Dallas. So, um, I'm glad that Bo got to share such a huge part of his brother's career along with him. Um, and man, like Terry Funk, like he knew how to give people the rub. Bray Wyatt knew how to give people the rub. We were talking about it earlier. Every feud that Bray Wyatt had, even if guys like John Cena or Randy Orton didn't need the rub, he made those feuds feel important just because he was involved in them. And
The last time we see Bray Wyatt on TV, he kind of like has given in to the dark side and he teams up with Uncle Howdy to destroy Hit Row. That's when he announced that he was going to be challenging the winner of Lashley and Lesnar. And then technically, the last time we saw him was in a video package, a couple of video packages leading up to Mania. He brought back the Muscle Man dance to fuck with Lashley. He brought back the Firefly Funhouse to fuck with Lashley as well.
yeah,
But after that, the feud was dropped.
because what happened was, yeah, I mentioned earlier, Bray contracted COVID-19. Uh, and he was on the road to recovery, man. He was on the way, you know.
Positive words were being said literally 2 weeks ago, like
Yeah,
going into SummerSlam. I like how we said we weren't going to chronicle his entire career. We
we
basically
kind of
did,
did.
but
We kind of
that's
did.
how much we loved Bray Wyatt. What I really wanted to talk about was I just wanted to quickly, because I know we kind of chronicled his career when we weren't supposed to, just talk
Yeah.
about my favorite moments and my favorite matches. Like off the top of my head, his match with Roman Reigns, Hell in a Cell 2015. His match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 31 that I was in attendance for.
Same. It was
Um,
an honor. It was an honor
Ultimate
to be there.
Deletion. When Broken Matt Hardy took the wrestling world by storm in 2016 and like reinvented the business. When WWE re-signed him in 2017, and I know they were going through the legal battles, the minute I heard that the Broken Matt Hardy character was coming back, and I saw Bray Wyatt attack him, I go, match made in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Broken Matt
Mm-hmm.
Hardy and Bray Wyatt. And I'll never forget Bray Wyatt cutting that promo. And then you see Woken, the glass shatters, and you see Broken Matt Hardy. And they have a war of words back and forth with each other. And I'm like, this is my favorite feud ever. I love this. I
Not
absolutely love this.
not just a war of words, a war of laughs. Bray Wyatt has
Yes.
his Eater of Worlds laugh, and then Mash is in there like, ha, like,
That led to a couple of matches between Broken Matt and Bray. And then Broken Matt laid down the gauntlet. Come to the Hardy compound, and we're gonna have the ultimate deletion.
God, you want to talk about
I
inventive?
I I can't tell you how many times I've watched Ultimate Deletion. The fact that Broken Matt Hardy got to bring his creation in TNA, and he got to have the production value that he went into this, and Vince said, "Sure, let's do it." It was over for a reason, and he got the full treatment, the whole production value. Yeah, you know what? Final Deletion was probably better. Yeah, you know what? This doesn't come near to the masterpiece that was Tag Team Apocalypto, I still loved every single minute of this match. And the callbacks and the references and just
The
Bray Wyatt fit
jokes.
like a glove in this situation. And it's my favorite Bray Wyatt match ever.
How I still sit here and wonder how Bray Wyatt actually got to the Hardy compound. Because the first shot you see
He
of
walked.
Bray in that match,
He fucking
yeah, no,
walked.
he's walking up to the gate and the gate's open and he's like walking around with the lantern. I'm like, did he just walk the whole way all the way to Cameron, North Carolina? Like,
Yeah.
man,
That beautiful rendition of Bray Wyatt's theme song performed by Reby on the piano going into that. It was just, God,
that was
I
his
loved
entrance
it.
theme. That was his
Yeah,
entrance
and it's
theme.
just, yeah, that beautiful rendition of his entrance theme. And
Hmm.
the two other things outside of the match that I remember Kurt Angle approaching the referee and saying, "Hey, I'm giving you the duty of going to the Hardy compound and officiating this Ultimate Deletion match." The referee looks at Angle and says, "What did I do to deserve this, man?" And then Michael Cole was kind of representing Vince's side of thinking, and Corey Graves was representing the fans' way of thinking, because Michael Cole was like, "I apologize in advance for what you're about to see. It's really stupid." And Corey Graves like, "Michael Cole, you uncultured swine, sit back and enjoy the brilliance that is Broken Matt Hardy, the broken brilliance." And those just like, it was amazing. I remember staying up and watching that match in its entirety. And I was just like, that was beautiful.
Bray and Matt would become tag team champions together after Bray was reincarnated out of that lake. Uh, just, God, so many memories flooding back to me, man. Like,
His match with Cena, Payback, his match with Seth Rollins at Great Balls of Fire that nobody really talks about, his good trilogy of matches
Great
with
Balls
Finn
of
Balor,
Fire.
the first time that they had their match,
Who can forget the
Firefly
House of Horrors
Funhouse.
match? Who can forget the House of Horrors match with Randy Orton? I was in the building for that.
Yeah, for the lulz,
I
man, for
know.
the lulz.
One thing you can never take away from Bray Wyatt is the fact that he's a two-time world champion, three-time world champion technically. His first win at the Elimination Chamber 2017 in a great chamber match, if you look back at
Oh yeah,
it. Bray Wyatt pinned both John Cena and AJ Styles at the end of that to become the champion. Uh wow. Unforgettable
yeah.
moment in so many ways.
Again, that moment when Randy Orton burned down his house, they ran with that moment for years and years and years, even going into the 2020 feud, the 2021 feud, where they were just like, "Yeah, don't think I forgot, Orton, you burned down my house." They referenced it in Ultimate Deletion. It was just, for some reason, that moment they stayed so consistent with for the rest of his career.
Yeah. Oh, that man should still be with us.
Yeah, he should. Any final thoughts about the career and life of Bray Wyatt? I think I ran down. Those are my favorite matches off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but
I
we already
mean,
talked about the Fiend at SummerSlam. That's another
Daniel
great match that
Bryan
they
at
had.
the Daniel Bryan at Royal Rumble 2014 is like one of the best wrestled matches of the mid 2010s, I would think. We already
One,
talked about the Taker match. Oh,
both
keeping in
Danielson
mind,
matches at Survivor Series and Rumble
keeping in mind,
2019
can I
or
mention something
2020.
about that? Can I mention something about that Taker match real quick before I forget?
Yeah,
This is right after Taker had lost to Brock Lesnar and the streak was broken. Bray starts calling out The Undertaker, and everybody's like, Taker's not coming out. I mean, that would be an awesome match, but I mean, that's not going to happen. Bray can just keep rattling off nonsense because he just had a very rough 2014 in terms of records. He had just had a feud with Cena, lost that feud, lost a feud
shitty feud
against
with
Chris
Moxley.
Jericho. Yeah, not a very good feud against John Moxley, where John Moxley lost via an exploding television. But
Vince was like, "Hey, you like this Ambrose guy? Yeah. You like this Wyatt guy? Yeah. Well, I'm gonna fucking ruin them. I'll make them look both. I'm gonna make both of them look like chumps."
thank God for Triple H, man. So Bray Wyatt again does not get enough credit for this, and he absolutely should. He built that whole freaking match against The Undertaker practically on his own.
He did.
Taker did not show
All the
up.
promos.
We did not see Taker pop up at any point in that build until WrestleMania itself.
That video package is one of my favorite wrestling video packages of all time. Chronicling the Undertaker streak. and then him losing the streak, and then Bray Wyatt just taunting him, talking about, well, where are you, dead man? Where are you, Undertaker? Do you still
Find
have it
me.
left in you? And then this moment still sends shivers down my spine whenever I hear it. And it even like gets me a little choked up. Like Bray Wyatt, he's in the ring, lightning strikes down on the rocking chair and it gets on
Hmm.
fire. And then you just see up on the screen and you hear Undertaker say, I'm not dead yet. And I'm like, shivers down my spine. And it gets me choked up every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, just think man oh man. Yeah, guys, shit, this sucks. I mean, we shouldn't be talking about this guy this way, but I'm glad that this was a bit of a time to pause and reflect on one of the true icons of this business.
Yeah.
Tragic, tragic, tragic situation. Our prayers go out to JoJo. Our prayers go out to his 4 children, his family, his friends, and his fans. Yowie wowie.
And
Yowie
if
wowie.
I can leave everybody with one thing, it's this. If I ask one thing of you these next couple weekends, whether you're watching All In, All Out, Payback, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, Impact, put everything to the side. All of your feelings, well, everything. Put all of that to the side right now and enjoy pro wrestling.
That's sure as hell what I'm gonna do.
Just
Um,
enjoy it. Enjoy All In, enjoy All Out, enjoy Payback, and just
um,
enjoy it because put your petty tribalism aside, everything you have issues with, and appreciate every single man and woman that comes out of that curtain, whether it be WWE or AEW, because you'll never know when if that's the last time you're going to see them.
you never know. You really never know. Huge kick in the balls, man. But um, one like just a couple other things before we wrap this up. God, first of all, I don't feel like monetizing this video if I'm being honest, just because I feel kind of icky doing that. Um, one thing I will ask of you guys though, Bray Wyatt does have a bunch of his merch still left over on WWE Shop. There's a bunch of plaques on there commemorating his greatest moments. Uh, I would recommend buying one of those, mainly because all the proceeds of Bray Wyatt's merch from now on are going to the family in wake of his death, um, which I think is an awesome move. So if nothing else, I mean, if you subscribed listening to this, great, and thank you. If this was a safe space for you, I'm glad we were able to provide that. This was a fun conversation, Tomas. I mean,
Yeah,
not a
it
fun
was. It
conversation,
was
but
therapeutic. It was therapeutic.
yeah, yeah. Just remembering some of the strangest and the silliest and the zaniest moments of one of the most up and down careers I think we'll ever see in this business.
Yeah.
Uh,
I personally am going to wait for them to come out with the tribute shirt because I'm sure everyone's crowding the website right now trying to buy up all of Wyatt's merchandise. But once they do, I will definitely grab one of those. And hopefully going forward, we can be a lot more positive, guys. We have All In on Sunday. Looking very forward to watching that. Like I said, we have All Out the following Sunday. We got WWE Payback coming up the Saturday before. And, with us, we're going to be reviewing Backlash 2005. We're going to be,
yeah,
reconnecting with Greg later this year. But, again, that's just my only thing. Enjoy pro wrestling. Enjoy it. Remember why you loved it. Remember
enjoy pro
why
wrestling. Enjoy
we
pro
do this.
wrestling. Yeah, enjoy pro wrestling. Love pro wrestling, and tell your loved ones that you love them because you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But yeah, shit, guys. Yeah, that was maybe one of the toughest videos I've ever had to record. Thank you, Tomas, for joining me on this. Thank you all for being in this safe space. And let us know what your favorite Bray Wyatt memories are. Let us know what your favorite matches are. Let's go ahead and talk about them because this is a safe space for anybody and all of his fans. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for
Yeah.
checking out the video. And
Last thing I got to say, real quick,
yeah.
Bray Wyatt, Husky Harris, really was a menace to John Cena his entire career
Oh
from
my
day
God.
one.
Wasn't he?
2010, he cost Cena the match with Wade Barrett.
Yeah, didn't he?
So
Didn't
good for
he?
you, Wyatt, for being a constant in Cena's career. Had to
God
bring that
damn
up.
it.
Randomly came to mind. But yeah, thank you everyone who came onto this stream. This was great.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. See you guys soon for the next one.